Hey guys, today I've got some crazy mysteries for you that are gonna mess with your head. And if you stick with me till the end, I'll tell you about a true story of two women who accidentally walked through an invisible door into the past. So, let's get started. Look at this huge 23-foot tall stone doorway carved straight into a red cliff in the Peruvian Andes, high up near the shore of Lake Titicaca. It looks like it should lead somewhere, but it doesn't. Behind it, there's just solid rock. This is the Gate of the Gods, also called Aramu Muru, and how it was discovered is almost as wild as the legend behind it. Back in 1996, a local guide named José Luis Delgado Mamani was hiking near Lake Titicaca when he suddenly froze. He'd been dreaming about this exact doorway for years. In his dreams, a glowing pink path led him to it, and the stone pulsed with a bright blue light, like a tunnel was opening inside the rock. And now, here it was, the same doorway from his dreams, real, right in front of him. The native people here have told a legend for centuries. When the Spanish invaded Peru, an Inca priest named Aramu Muru fled into these mountains carrying a sacred golden disc from the holiest temple in Cusco. Cornered at this cliff, he placed the disc into a small round slot in the doorway. Instantly, the stone blazed with blue light. A shimmering tunnel ripped open inside the rock, and he stepped through it, vanishing forever. The door sealed shut behind him. Some say he escaped to the land of the gods, but you know what? There's something about this doorway that's actually real. Scientists have discovered that it sits right on an ancient energy line called a ley line, which connects it to other sacred sites in Peru and Bolivia, and even the pyramids of Giza. The cliff itself is packed with quartz crystals, the kind that can create tiny electrical charges when they're pressed or shaken. Even today, visitors who go there now and touch the small hole in the center where Aramu Muru put his golden disc often feel a strange pulse or vibration in the stone. Some feel dizzy, get sudden chills, or even feel like they're zoning out. It's like the doorway holds some kind of energy. So what is it? Is it just a big old carving, an unfinished monument, or could there be a tiny bit of truth hidden in that wild legend? Could this cliff in Peru, found by a man who dreamed it, actually be a door to somewhere else? No one knows for sure, but the dreams, the vibrations, and the story of the priest who vanished, they make you stand in front of that huge, silent door in the Peruvian mountains and wonder, what if? But that wasn't the only place people believe might hide a portal to somewhere else, because on the other side of the world, an entire village vanished and left behind just one word scratched into wood. Now, let me tell you the mystery of Roanoke, a lost English settlement that vanished over 400 years ago. And I think I've found where they really went. Back in 1587, a group of 115 men, women and children arrived on Roanoke Island off the coast of what is now North Carolina. They were there to build England's first permanent home in the New World. Among them was Governor John White's daughter, Eleanor Dare. Just days after landing, she gave birth to a baby girl named Virginia Dare. She is the first English child born in America. In fact, an entire US state, Virginia, still carries her name. Life was tough from the start. They'd arrived too late to plant crops, and tensions simmered with nearby native tribes after earlier English expeditions had ended violently. Within a month, the desperate colonists begged Governor White to sail back to England for more people and vital supplies like food, tools, and weapons. White agreed but faced heartbreaking delays. War had broken out between England and Spain, and every ship was needed for battle. It took 3 long years before he could return. When White finally made it back on August 18th, 1590, just before Virginia Dare's 3rd birthday, he stepped into a scene straight out of a ghost story. The island was wrapped in an eerie, thick fog. As it lifted, he saw the settlement still standing, but completely empty. The houses had been carefully taken apart, not destroyed. Personal belongings lay untouched. There were no signs of a fight, no graves, no bodies, just an unsettling silence. The only clear clue was a single word carved into a fence post: CROATOAN, and a smaller carving on a tree that read CRO. That scratch on wood is the last direct message anyone ever found from the people of Roanoke. So, what really happened? Over the years, many theories have been suggested. Some say famine or disease wiped them out during a terrible drought, but that does not explain why everything was left in perfect order and no bodies were ever found. In fact, weather records and tree ring studies show that in that part of the coast, there is no clear evidence of a famine strong enough to destroy the entire colony. Others believe they were attacked and killed by nearby native tribes seeking revenge for past conflicts. But if that had happened, there should have been signs such as damaged buildings, scattered weapons, or traces of a fight. None of that was ever found. It is as if the settlers simply walked away. Now here's my thought. Just inland from Roanoke rise the Appalachian Mountains, the oldest, quietest mountains in North America. They sit on ancient ley lines. Ley lines are actually invisible energy paths that connect sacred sites like the Great Pyramids of Giza, Stonehenge in England, Machu Picchu in Peru, the Nazca Lines in South America, Easter Island, and even the temples of Angkor Wat in Cambodia. Parts of the Appalachians are so remote that some people living there still speak a form of English from the 1600s. But these mountains also have a dark reputation of no-go areas. Many expeditions have entered them and never been seen again. So, maybe some of the Roanoke settlers went inland, looking for food or help, but they didn't just get lost. Maybe they walked into the wrong place, like in a portal to somewhere else entirely. What if the settlers of Roanoke weren't lost, but slipped into another time? Well, one man in Ukraine may have done exactly that, and he came back with a photo that still hasn't been explained. Next, I'll tell you about a mysterious man who slipped through time. It all began in April 2006, when a young man dressed in vintage 1950s clothing was spotted wandering the streets of Kyiv, Ukraine. Looking utterly bewildered, he approached police officers, asking for directions to a street that hadn't existed for decades, and handed them a Soviet-era ID card claiming he was born in 1932. His name was Sergei Ponomarenko. According to his documents, he should have been 74 years old, yet he appeared no older than 25. Police took him to a psychiatric clinic for evaluation, where Dr. Pavel Kutrikov recorded their sessions. Sergei insisted he'd been living in 1958, just moments earlier, recalling vivid details about Kyiv's past and his fiancée, Valentina. His story took a stranger turn when he described photographing a bell-shaped UFO over the city, right before finding himself in 2006. To verify his claims, authorities developed the film from his antique Yashica camera. The photos showed authentic 1950s Kyiv scenes, including one of Sergei with Valentina and another of the mysterious UFO he described. Investigators then uncovered records of Sergei Ponomarenko, who vanished in 1958. They tracked down Valentina, now in her 70s, who confirmed Sergei was her fiancé. She revealed he'd reappeared briefly after his initial disappearance, acting strangely and predicting futuristic technology like cell phones. She also shows them a photo she claims Sergei gave her later. A picture of an old Sergei standing in a futuristic-looking city, supposedly taken in 2050. But before anyone could learn more, Sergei vanishes again. This time, in 2006, he's in a locked interview room at the psychiatric hospital one moment, and the next, he's just gone. Security footage shows him entering the room but never leaving. His camera, his documents, and the strange photographs remain locked away in police archives to this day. Some say he was a clever fraud. Others believe he was a genuine time traveler, caught in some loop between past, present, and future. And if time travel sounds wild, wait until you hear what scientists discovered near a radioactive Russian lake, where the guards started reporting something huge, floating just beneath the surface. Next, I'll tell you the story of a lake in Russia that's been called one of the deadliest places on Earth. Back in the 1950s, near the town of Kishtim, the Soviet Union ran a huge nuclear facility called Mayak. It was where they stored their most dangerous nuclear waste. No one knows for sure whether this deadly material slowly leaked into a nearby lake, or if workers, without any safety measures, dumped it there on purpose. But decades later, the horrifying truth came out. The lake had turned into water in the shape of death. Its waters were saturated with lethal levels of cesium-137 and strontium-90, making it one of the most radioactive spots on Earth. But the lake's reputation was not only built on radiation, it was also whispered about for the strange, unexplained events surrounding it. Scientists who visited for research reported bizarre experiences. Some said their watches began running fast. Others said theirs slowed down. It was as if some unknown magnetic or cosmic force in that place was warping time itself. Local herders claimed that on silent nights, they heard strange echoes rising from the water, sometimes like a low, deep hum, sometimes like human moans. But the scariest story of all is called the Silent Watchman. In the 1970s, the Soviet government had placed tight security around the lake. One night, a guard was stationed inside a small shelter with a reinforced glass window overlooking the water. The radio operator monitoring him noticed the guard kept reporting something heavy moving in the lake. Then suddenly, the guard shouted into the radio, "What is that?" "It's floating on the water, like a man, but huge." Moments later, his report stopped. The next morning, when the day shift arrived, they found the guard slumped in his chair, eyes wide open, but his body lifeless. There were no wounds, but his skin bore burns from radiation exposure, and there was something else like some mysterious, glowing blue marks along his body. According to whispers from inside sources, his cause of death was listed as acute radiation exposure. But the question remained, how could he have been exposed while sitting inside a sealed shelter? And what was that heavy, human-like shape floating on the lake's surface? Today, the lake is still there, but the Russian government has entombed it in layers of concrete and soil, sealing it from the world. What no one can say for certain is whether that unknown heavy thing was buried along with it, or whether it still lurks somewhere, deep in the forests of Kishtim, hidden from all human eyes. A radioactive monster is terrifying, but what if you accidentally walked into history and came face to face with a dead queen? Okay, what you're about to hear is the astonishing story of two women who might have walked through a hidden door into the past. It was August 1901. Charlotte Moberly and Eleanor Jourdain, two respectable English women working in Paris, decided to visit the Palace of Versailles. They were both respectable academics, well-educated women with a deep love for history. Charlotte was even a school principal. Like many visitors, they wandered through the palace's grand gardens, eventually heading toward the Petit Trianon, a smaller palace once loved by Queen Marie Antoinette. But as they wandered, something strange happened. They took a wrong turn and found themselves walking down a quiet path. The air seemed heavy, the sunlight dimmed, and an odd stillness settled around them. The lively chatter of tourists was gone. It was as if the world had gone silent. Then they began to notice people nearby, but they were not ordinary visitors. These figures were dressed in clothes from another time. Men in long coats and tricorn hats, women in flowing dresses and powdered wigs. The entire scene looked like something from the late 1700s. One man, in particular, wore a large brimmed hat and carried an unusual, old-fashioned tool. As they continued walking, they saw a woman sitting under a tree, sketching. Her elaborate gown, pale skin, and elegant hairstyle looked exactly like portraits of Marie Antoinette, the last queen of France before the Revolution. Charlotte later swore it was her. Neither woman spoke much in the moment, but both felt an unshakable sense of unease. Something about the atmosphere felt unnatural, like they had stepped into a painting that had come alive. Suddenly, a man waved to them urgently, motioning for them to leave the area. They obeyed, turning down another path, and just like that, the strange heaviness lifted. The air was bright again, the sounds of the present returned, and the people around them were dressed in modern clothes. They didn't speak of it until a week later. Then they compared their memories, wrote down every detail, and began to investigate. To their astonishment, every unusual thing they'd seen, the clothes, the buildings, even the forgotten bridge, matched historical records of Versailles. In the late 18th century, in 1911, they published a book, an adventure, describing what they believed was a time slip, a moment where they had somehow stepped outside the present and into the past. Skeptics dismissed the story, suggesting it was imagination or a staged performance, but no evidence of a reenactment was ever found. To this day, their account, known as the Versailles time slip, remains one of history's most famous and baffling time travel stories. And there you have it, some of the strangest, most unexplained mysteries hiding in history. Which one stuck with you the most? Tell me in the comments. I love hearing your theories. And hey, if you enjoyed this little trip into the weird side of the past, give this video a like, share it with a friend who loves a good mystery, and make sure to subscribe to our channel, because there are so many more stories I can't wait to tell you. Thanks for watching.